Full service on the Insignia 2.0 CDTI. Starting underneath, we need to remove the centre portion of this under tray, which flaps down like this. So that may not be much good if you are working on the ground, in which case you'll need to remove the whole under tray with the bolts you can see here. Remove the sump plug, and that's the location of the oil filter. The sump plug is a 13mm, and these sump plugs have holes in, so you don't actually need to fully remove them to drain the oil. However, the oil will drain out slow compared to fully removing the sump plug, and also due to the thickness of the thread, it wouldn't drain the sump plug as much as possible. So I'm removing the sump plug fully. We'd normally change the sump washer, but unfortunately we didn't have any of these in stock, so we had to reuse it. Obviously, after the service we took special care that the sump wasn't leaking. So I've replaced the sump plug temporarily at this point so that we can move on to the oil filter, which is very awkwardly positioned. The best tool that we had for removal was a 32mm spanner that had been cut in half. It looks like there's more room on the video than there is in real life, so getting a ratchet in was quite difficult. So I just had to take it step by step with this half spanner. It took a long time. Apparently some models have a tube that directs the oil away from all the components and allows it to be drained cleanly, but this model didn't appear to have it, so the oil drained straight out down onto the drive shaft and down onto the subframe, which meant that it also collected on top of the under tray. Now, I'd normally do this in the oil drain container, I don't know why I didn't, but remove the old oil filter and beware there will be even more oil trapped there in the oil filter housing. So a new oil filter and a new O-ring for the oil filter housing cap. So I make even more mess. Remove the old O-ring and replace with the new one. Now any O-rings, check that they do have some oil on them. This will make sure that there's a good seal when they're refitted. Refit the oil filter into the housing cap. Refit the oil filter and tighten to 25 Newton meters. However, this type of oil filter housing, the filter is tight as soon as that last piece of plastic is flush with the metal. You're unlikely to be able to get a torque wrench in there anyway. And the torque for the sump plug is just 20 Newton meters apparently on this car. But we're taking special care that the sump plug isn't leaking. We've had to reuse the old sump washer. So we're cleaning off the waste oil that's obviously gone everywhere. There was so much oil sat on the outer part of the under tray that I decided to drop it down. There would have been no way of cleaning all this off enough to guarantee that it won't be dripping off as water gets up there. So with the sump plug replaced, we can now top up the oil. The capacity on this engine is 4.5 litres, so I added just a touch over 4 litres to start with. Do make sure that you replace the cap before running the engine. With the initial 4 litres of oil in the engine, start it up and run it for a few minutes, then switch it off for at least 15 minutes. At this point, we can get a relatively accurate level for the oil. So we pull the dipstick out, clean it, pull the dipstick out again, and we can see after already topping up, the oil level is 2/3 between the minimum and maximum level, which is perfectly good considering the engine has only been sat for a few minutes.
To reset the oil degradation, or the service light, as it is on the Vauxhalls, turn on the ignition, press menu on the stalk, and flick through until you get to the remaining oil life. Press the end. Are you sure? Yes. And that's all you have to do.
The fuel filter is located on the offside rear underneath the car, and to remove the filter you'll need a 36mm socket. There is a way to drain the filter housing first using the centre of the socket area, but I find that it's easier to protect against leaks by just removing the main thing all in one go. Just make sure that you've got a tray to catch all of the diesel that will drain out. This is the new filter. This side's the top, and to the bottom, as you can see, the old filter as well is still there. So we just need to pull the old filter out of position. It's pretty well stuck. Replace the old filter housing seal, or O-ring. When fitting the new seal, make sure that you coat it in some grease. Now it'll say 25 Newton meters on the housing once again, but with these plastic housings you can always tell as soon as the plastic meets, then the housing is tight. And we'll just clean off the excess diesel. So when I do fuel filters, if we're lucky, we'll get away with just cycling the ignition a few times, which initiates the lift pump in the tank. Now for the air filter, we'll just disconnect the MAF sensor for now. Then we've got these Torx screws all around the edge of the airbox. Now I thought there'd be enough clay in the intake pipe, but it didn't matter what I did, the pipe just didn't seem to budge, so I ended up undoing 3 Jubilee clips. So we've got the one on each side of the MAF sensor, and then I even ended up needing to undo the one on the turbo at the other end of the pipe, which is just slightly cut off screen. If the airbox is particularly full of debris, then do use a vacuum cleaner to clean it out. When fitting the new filter, nice and easy with a square filter, but take special care around the edges that the sides of the filter are seated correctly. finally, the cabin filter. So at the left hand side of the glove box, you've got this plastic panel that can easily be removed, and then you've got 4 7mm headed screws holding the glove box in position. Once the screws have been removed, you should be able to pull the glove box out pretty easily. Disconnects the glove box light, which will just allow you to get the glove box out of the way and not put pressure on the cable. And the cabin filter is located behind this panel here. So you've got a clip on the top and you've got to push the clips out on each side. Take note of the direction of the airflow, which is down. So new filter. Make sure it's the same way around as the original filter that came out. So as you can see, the airflow is pointing downwards. Push the filter in and the cover easily clicks back into place. Replace the glove box, tighten all 4 screws, replace the side panel, and we're all done.